Wrong place. Kiddushin, and we have Aleph Dalet. A large animal is acquired by Mitzvah, and a small one by being lifted. These are the words of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Eliezer. The sages, however, say a small animal is acquired by Mishika. Possession, which,
huh?
I'm sorry, Mishika.
Uh, yes. فهم الذكر نتن بمشيخة yeah.
Possessions which have a lien on them are acquired with money and with a document, or without an act of possession. And those which cannot be have a lien on them are acquired only with Masika. Possessions which should not have a lien on them are acquired together with possessions which can have a lien on them with money, a document, or an act of possession, and possessions which cannot have a lien on them cause one to swear concerning possessions which she can have a lien on them. Anything which chooses payment for another object, once this takes possession, one that has become liable for its exchange. How? If one exchanged an ox for a cow or a donkey for a cow, once this takes possession, that one becomes liable for its exchange. Possession by the temple treasury is with money, and the possession by a private person is with an act of possession. Its oral dedication to the temple is like a delivery to a private person.
Okay. All right. Right now, we move on to onto like a completely different subject, is the obligation of mitzvahs. Call mitzvahs haben al ha'ab, anything where there's a mitzvah for the father to do to the son. Anashim chayavin v'nashim pituros. So, for example, a father has an obligation to do a bris milah on his son. Okay, but if the father dies, then the mother does not have an obligation to perform the bris milah. That obligation devolves onto Beis Din. Okay. V'chol mitzvah sa'av al haben, any mitzvah pertaining to the father which falls onto the son, echad anashim echad nashim chayavin. So anything where, for example, kibud avaim, it's an obligation on both sons and daughters. There's no difference between them. So when the obligation goes downwards, when it's an obligation on the father, it is not equal for the mother. But when it's an obligation on the child and the parent, it applies to both daughters and sons. Okay. Kol mitzvahs aseh shezman grama. When you have a positive time-bound mitzvah, anashim chayavim v'nashim paturas. So your general rule is that positive time-bound mitzvah, such as sitting in a sukkah, such as listening to shofar, these are only obligatory for men. Chol mitzvahs aseh shelo hazman grama, and any positive mitzvah that is not time-bound. For example, mezuzah. Echad anashim ve'echad nashim chayavin. Okay, so that makes they both are obligated. V'chol mitzvahs lo taseh ben shezman grama ben shelo hazman grama, and negative commandments, it makes no difference whether they are time-bound or not time-bound. Echad anashim ve'echad nashim chayavin. But the only exceptions to these are negative mitzvahs that are specifically for males, which are bal tashchis. We're not talking about wasting things. We're talking about being bal tashchis, the four corners of your beard, right? So men are not allowed to shave with a razor all over their face because they're not allowed to destroy that beard with a razor. Bal takif is rounding off your payers, basically. That's the mitzvah of not having that pudding bowl haircut that like the priests have. Ubal tame lamesim, and male kohanim are not allowed to become tame, but female kohanim, the wives and daughters of kohanim are permitted to become tame.
This is all halakha from the Torah.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
how do the women of the wall hold on to this?
How what?
The women of the wall,
What's your particular taina on them?
no, well, how can they say I'm not obligated in this mitzvah, and I want to do this, I want to read from the Torah, I want to,
Well,
what
okay, so that's just because you're not obligated doesn't mean you're not allowed to do it. Plenty of women will take lulav, will go to listen to shofar. I mean, all the women go to shul to listen to shofar, even though they don't have a mitzvah, because chavivin aleim, mitzvahs, people love doing mitzvahs. So there's nothing wrong in that. It's a good thing for them to do a mitzvah that you haven't been commanded in. The women of the wall are a completely different story. They're out for political things, and they're trying to make a political statement that women are equal and must be able to do whatever.
Okay. All right.
Different different story. Okay. Um, Carrying on in the different things that men do and women don't do. So here are the things that are in the temple. So smicha, when a person brings a korban and they have to lean on it, only men have to do smicha. Tnufos, the waving is that sometimes some sacrifices require waving, and in most of these cases, women are also pater from tenufa, but we'll see there are some exceptions. The hagashos, things that are brought close to the temple. Now, these are now going to be things that male kohanim do as part of the avodah. So hagashos, kmitzos, haktaros, malikos, hazaros, the sprinklings and the kabbalas. Nagos ba'anashim v'lo b'nashim. So all of these things are things that men do, but not women. Chutz mi minchas sota unazira. Right, the mincha of a sota, as we've seen in Maseches Sota during the process, as she brings her korban in the basket, and the kohen comes and waves it with her, and also Nazira, once she completes her term, the woman also participates in the hanafa of her korban. Okay, now where are other things where mitzvahs are different in different circumstances? Mitzvahs shehi teluos ba'aretz. Any mitzvah that is dependent on the land. Okay, on ena no heges ela ba'aretz. Then it's only applicable in the land, which is Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so for example, you have things that are trumas and masros. Okay, trumas and masros are things that are on things that are grown from the ground, and therefore they only apply in the ground, leaving leket shicha peah, all the gifts to the poor only apply in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, but everything else is also applicable in Chutz La'aretz, except what are some dinim that are that are based on agriculture, but do also apply in Chutz La'aretz are orla and kilayim. So orla being the produce up for the first 3 years is aser. So the same thing happens in Chutz La'aretz. Why is there an exception for Orla? Interesting question. I'm not sure what the lomdus is. Why? Let me just see if it says yes. It's Orla. She also. Yeah, I don't see a svara as to why Orla is also aser in Chutz La'aretz, and kilayim we're speaking about is specifically kilayim hakerem, that is the grape, like having other growths that grow under a grapevine. So that's also prohibited in Chutz La'aretz.
It says here that although this has an obligation concerning land, it is rightly a tradition transmitted orally to Moshe at Sinai that is binding everywhere, but only not in the Holy Land. But then it says others contend that this application outside of Eretz Israel is a rabbinical ordinance which the Jews lived in the diaspora accepted upon themselves.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not see that explanation. So it's either halacha l'Moshe Sinai, or else it's a chomer that the Jews in Chutz La'aretz accepted on themselves. Okay, interesting. Okay, now Rabbi Eliezer also comes and says also chadash, the produce that grows that takes root after they brought the korban haomer is aser until the following Pesach. And apparently that is accepted widely as the halacha. So what you have is in the southern hemisphere, however, that's kind of a problem, I know, because in South Africa, very few people actually observe Chadash because half of the year it's almost impossible to find flour that's Yashan. So they have, there's one authority over there that keeps Yashan and has a whole bulletin about which products you can buy at which times of the year and with what expiry dates on them. Um, but most people just don't even know what Yashan is.
Mhm.
Um, so from one of the things that I heard about this is that it's also because of a chashash that if you leave the flour for that long, it gets wormy. So what are you going to prefer? Are you going to prefer to take the risk of people using flour that's got worms, or are you going to rely on the majority opinion of the Mishnah? Anyway, um, back to Gittin Ches Gimel.
Okay, Keskill. Um, the same is true concerning Kiddushin, and the same is true concerning a debt. If his creditor said to him, "Throw me my debt," and he threw it to him, if it falls close to the lender, the borrower gains. If it's close to the borrower, he is obligated. Half and half, they both divide. If she was standing on top of the roof and he threw it to her once it reaches the air space of the roof, she is divorced. If he was above and she below and he threw it to her once it leaves the domain of the roof, even if it was erased or burnt, she is divorced. Beit Shammai says a man may divorce his wife with an old get. Beit Hillel says, however, prohibits it. And what is an old get? Anytime he includes himself with her after he wrote it for her. That's it. Okay. Right.
Um,
Uh,
no,
one,
there's another one.
if he wrote the date of the get according to the reign of the kingdom, which is unworthy according to the kingdom of Media, according to the kingdom of Greece, to the construction of the temple, or to the destruction of the temple, for if he was in the east, if he wrote in the west, or in the west and he wrote in the east, she must leave both of them, and if she needs to receive a get from each of them, she's entitled neither to a kasuba nor for sustenance nor worn out clothing. From either, if she took from either, you must return it. Her child is either a mamza, neither of them may contaminate themselves to her, and neither has rights to her findings, her handiwork, or the revocation of her vows. If she was the daughter of a non-Kohen, she is disqualified from marrying a Kohen. If she's the daughter of a Levi, she's disqualified from marrying tithe. And if the daughter of a Kohen, she is disqualified from Truma. The heirs of both do not inherit a ketubah, and if they decide, the brother of each performs kalitza, but not yibum. If he changed his name or her name, the name of his town or the name of her town, she must leave both of them, and all these procedures apply to her. Okay,
Hey, Sota.
so there we go. So I have Bob Base. If a single witness testified, I saw her become defiled, she did not drink. Moreover, even if a slave or a female slave are believed to disqualify her from receiving payment for a marriage contract, her mother-in-law, her mother-in-law's mother, daughter, a co-wife, her husband's brother, side wife, and or husband's daughter, for all are believed not, however, to disqualify her from receiving payment for a marriage contract, but only that she not drink. The logic would have dictated that if the first testimony, which does not render her permanently forbidden, cannot be established by less than two witnesses, then the last testimony, which does render her permanently forbidden, should certainly not be established by less than two witnesses. But the Torah teaches less than two witnesses but the Torah teaches that there are none to testify against her, and any manner of testimony which there may be against her. Now the logic of Kal V'chomer dictates in regard to the first testimony that if the last testimony, which is not rendered permanently forbidden, can yet be established by one witness, then the first testimony, which is not rendered permanently forbidden, should be certainly established by one witness. But the Torah teaches, for he found in some hearts some immoral matter, and over there it says, by the testimony of two witnesses shall a matter be established. Just as over there is a testimony of two witnesses, here too is a testimony of two witnesses. If one says that she was a father, another says she was not the father, or one said woman said she was a father, another said she was not, she drinks, but one says she was defiled, and if two say she was not defiled, she drinks. If two say that she was a father, one says she did not defile, she does not drink. All right. Okay. Subos.
Hmm.
Subos. Kimel Vav. An orphan for one who was betrothed and then divorced, Rabbi Elazar says, one who seduces her is exempt, but one who violates her is liable. What is the compensation for disgrace? It all depends upon the status of the one who's disgraced and the one who was disgraced. As to a payment, we regard her as if she were a slave woman or who was to be sold, however much she was worth and how much she is worth. The fine is uniform with everyone, and every monetary obligation that has a fixed amount, yet set by the Torah, is often uniform with everyone. Whenever there is a right of sale, there is no fine composed, and whenever there is a fine imposed, there is no right of sale. A minor is subject to the right of sale, and she is not entitled to a fine. A maiden is entitled to a fine, and the right of sale does not apply to her. A mature girl is either subject to the right of sale, or is she entitled to a fine. If one declares I have seduced,
Done.
okay,
Yeah, now we're into Shabbos.
okay. Cask which had been broken, which may save for enough food for 3 meals, and one may say to others, come and save for yourselves, however, they may not soak it up with a sponge. One may not press fruits to extract juice from them, and even if they float out by themselves, they're prohibited. Rabbi Yehuda says, even if they were intended for food, the juice that flows with them is permitted, but if they were intended for juice, what flows from them is prohibited. Honeycombs, which are one crushed before Shabbos, and the honey which flowed out by itself are prohibited, but Elias says permits them. Anything that was put in the hot water before Shabbos may be soaked in hot water on Shabbos, but anything that was not put in hot water before Shabbos may be rinsed in hot water on Shabbos. Except in old salted fish, small salted fish, or Spanish mackerel, because the rinsing completes the preparation. A person may break open a cask to eat dried figs from that bride that is not intended to make a vessel. We may not perforate the bungs of a cask, and these are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. The sages, however, permit it, and one may not perforate it on its side. If it was perforated, one may not place a wax upon it because he smooths it. But you said Yehuda, an incident came before Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai and Arab, and he said, I fear on his account that he may be liable for a sin offering.
Toros.
Okay. Yud Dalin. One who places grapes taken from the base gases from the expanse of the ground from the wine to the wine press. Beis Shammai says he must put them in the wine press with hands that are tahor, and he puts them in the wine press with hands that are tame. He has rendered the grapes tame. Beis Hillel says he may not put the grapes in the wine press with hands that are tame, and it can still separate, and one can still separate the truma in tahara. If one took grapes from a bucket or from an expanse on leave, everyone agrees that he must put them in the wine press with hands that are tahor, and if he put them in the wine press with hands that are tame, he has rendered the grapes tame. One who eats grapes taken from baskets and one who expands from an expanse on the ground, even if the grapes are cracked and the juice is dripping on the wine press is tahor. If the grapes are brought from a bucket from an expanse of leaves and a single grape fell in the wine press, if the grape has a seal, the wine press is tahor. If it does not have a seal, the wine press is tameh. If a cluster of grapes fell from him and he pressed them on an empty place or on the wine press, if the cluster consists of precisely the volume of an egg, the wine press is tahor. If the cluster consists of more than a volume of an egg, the wine press is tameh, for as soon as the first drop of juice came out, it was rendered tameh by the volume of the egg. If someone was standing and talking on the rim of a pit of wine, and saliva poured out of his mouth, and there in doubt whether saliva reached the pit or did not reach it, the uncertainty is still tahor. Okay.
Okay, and tomorrow we're going to finish Toros and start Mikvaos.
Mikvos, okay.
Yeah.
Nakos. Okay. Yud base. Hey.
Dalid.
Colin?
Yeah, Dalid.
Okay. Yud base. Colin. Here we go. A person may donate a mikvah offering of 60 Isurim and bring it in one vessel. If he said, I take upon myself to bring 61 Isurim, he brings 60 in one vessel and one in another. Similarly, the congregation brings 61 on the first day of Sukkot, which falls on Sabbath. If it's sufficient for this individual that is well less than the congregant, said Reb Shimon, but these aren't these for the bills and these for the lambs, and they may not be mixed with one another. Rather than 60 can be mixed. They said to him, 60 can be mixed and 61 cannot be mixed. He said to them, all measures of the sages are dust. In 40 saw we can immerse, but in 40 saw less. With one quarter we may not immerse. One can donate a log, a lugum, 2 lugum, or 5, but he cannot donate 3, 4, or 6 from 6 up. One can donate wine, but cannot donate oil. These are the words of Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Tarfon says one can donate oil. Rabbi Tarfon said just as fine we find concerning wine that it becomes an obligation or as an order for donation, so too it comes as an obligation or a donation. Rabbi Kiva said to him, no, this is not said of wine. If this is said of wine, is because it's brought an obligation on its own. Can you say the same of oil, which is not brought an obligation on its own? Two people cannot donate one Isserah, but they can donate an oil offering and a shalom offering, and with a bird, even a single bird. One more. If one said, I take upon myself to bring an Isserah, he brings one. If he said, I Isseronim, he brings two. If he said, I specify, but I do not what I specified, he must bring 60 Isseron. If he said, I take upon myself to bring a mincha offering, he may bring whichever he wishes. And Yehuda says he must bring the mincha offering of fine flour, but that is the principal mincha offering.
Okay, okay.
We made it.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a great
Well
day.
done. You too.
All
Good
right.
day. Bye.